Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'll be reviewing Thunderbolts, the latest installment from the MCU. Now this is going to be a non-spoiler review. I'm just going to kind of give you my thoughts, more kind of a conversation-based review here, just kind of off the top of the dome. Didn't really kind of prepare anything, but I just wanted to give you my initial thoughts, kind of where I'm coming from, my relationship to the MCU, how I felt maybe a little bit about movies leading up to the Thunderbolts, and I'll give you my thoughts. So, leading up to the Thunderbolts, I'll be honest, I grew up with the MCU. Well, I mean, I was already kind of grown when the MCU happened. I was, technically kind of mid-high school, leaving high school, and I was out of high school by the time the Avengers came around. But the Avengers was at such a high, and the end game, it was probably the height of Marvel, and then after that, it dipped a lot for me. I didn't really find it that great. I feel like the writing has suffered. If you can go back and watch my Captain America review and Brave New World, and that movie was okay, it was fine, but it didn't blow me away. It didn't do anything for me. And a lot of Marvel stuff hasn't really been that great, in my opinion. I know a lot of people love Deadpool and Wolverine, but unfortunately, as a narrative story, I think it falls flat on its face. I don't think it's very good at all. Obviously there are a bunch of cameos, but I think that's what keeps the backbone. And the fact that it's a Deadpool movie, so it can be silly, it can be jokey, and the fact that you have Deadpool and Wolverine together is the big draw. But other than that, there's really nothing there, right? We don't really explore anything substantial in that movie when you look at it. When you really look at what happens in that movie and you take away all the fancy eye candy and everything that happens, it doesn't really give you anything to really sink your teeth into, in my opinion. So that brings us to Thunderbolts. And I didn't know what to expect. I kept all expectations. I checked them at the door. I had none for this movie, to be honest. It's a bunch of ragtag heroes who are B heroes who come from the TV shows or are lesser characters in other movies. And I was just like, all right, let's just see how this works. There was one shining beacon, which is the Sentry, played by Lewis Pullman, which that was kind of my biggest draw. I was like, well, I like the Sentry from the comic books. I'm curious to see how they're going to do his origin story. So that was the big draw for me. Obviously, Yelena, Florence Pugh's character, is at the center of this film. It is her movie, essentially, and I think that the MCU has been missing kind of like those all-star players, right? Those people that you can really kind of hang the next phase of the franchise on. And I'm here to tell you that I think Yelena / Florence Pugh is that person, is one of those people that you will be able to go, okay, now she could, if she wanted to, she could probably carry this MCU franchise forward for the next 10 years. Obviously, we know they're going to have X-Men coming down the pipeline. They're going to have other things that they're going to sprinkle in. We got Doctor Doom coming in the next Fantastic Four and then Doomsday. So things are going to ramp up and we have more cameos to explore. But in terms of the heart and the emotion, I mean, she carries this movie on her back. And I think she did a great job. I think the direction here was really well done. They kept it all within the realm of kind of more of a grounded reality, right? We're back to basics with this movie. There are fantastical elements. Obviously, the Sentry is in it. I'm not going to spoil anything about the movie. I really don't want to, because I think you should just go in, even if you haven't seen the Marvel TV shows, right? If you haven't seen Black Widow, if you haven't seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? I think you can still go in and enjoy this. Just kind of surrender yourself to the movie. I can see where if you don't know the history of the characters, it may not hit you. It'll still be a good movie for you, but it may not reach the levels that it did for somebody like me. One thing that I do think that they're not talking about enough when they're reviewing this movie is how funny it is. I wasn't expecting it to be that funny, and there are characters in here like John Walker, U.S. agent, who I was okay with in the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show. I was kind of like, all right, whatever, like his character's fine. But he gets developed more. All of these characters in here, every single one gets a personality, right? And kind of gets to be developed even more. And I think that seems to be the difference between the TV shows, unless you're Loki, but that seems to be the difference between the TV shows and the movies. For some reason, it feels like obviously the movies have bigger budgets and but these things belong on the big screen. I think Disney Plus was kind of a disservice to the MCU. I really feel like, and I think this is just fact at this point, where Disney basically said, okay, we're going to have a streaming service. And they looked at the MCU and they looked at Kevin Feige and they said, you need to make TV shows for our Disney Plus. And that was not, I don't think, post or like pre-Endgame, they hadn't planned for any of that, right? And then basically by the time Endgame happened, then, I mean, the ball was already rolling on the Disney Plus streaming service itself. So, and unfortunately, I don't think there was any planning for that. I feel like the people that run the MCU, they got hit with that mandate and they were like, well, we don't have anything prepared. We're not really. So they went to the comics and they looked at the characters that they had and they looked at the characters that they lost in Endgame and they're like, well, we don't really have a lot. So I guess we'll just pick this one and we'll do a WandaVision, which is kind of a continuation, but kind of not, but was probably one of the better ones that they did. And obviously they had Loki, and you can always rely on Loki. He's a great character. So as long as you give him good writing, which they did in his shows, those are going to stick out and kind of be at the forefront. And I think this was it was a simple movie, right? But, and it stayed very grounded until it got to the end. And then there were some crazy, like fantastical stuff that was going on. And then we started to kind of delve into the Century. And that's when I got super excited. My one con is that I think this movie's too short. They played it safe because I think I don't know if this came from the studio or what this mandate was, but there's probably some mandate I think there's definitely a longer cut and a bigger movie here, but I think there was some sort of mandate coming from the studio where they were like, hey, your budget is not going to be as much as we thought we were going to give you, because other movies in the past have performed not as well as we wanted. So I think maybe their budget got cut a little bit because it seemed like there was stuff cut out of this movie and they needed to make it a tighter edit. My standouts here, guys, are Lewis Pullman, obviously, as the Sentry. He's probably one of the most intriguing characters in the MCU right now. I could also see, basically on what they set up, he could also be a super big, like a very big leader moving forward in the MCU, right? Kind of taking the place of a Captain America. Or, I mean, I know we have Sam Wilson, but like Sam Wilson, which I didn't understand that either, he refuses to take the super soldier serum, which I don't know how that's going to work. I guess that's kind of it's like, well, okay, I understand why you want to take a stance, but there's a lot of cosmic threats that we have to face here in the upcoming movies. So I just don't understand. I think it diminishes the role that he can play. It's like, do I want Anthony Mackie to be shoved in the background? No, I don't. But if he doesn't have the super soldier serum, I don't know how he goes toe to toe with some of these big, if they're going to fight the X-Men eventually, how you going to, I don't know. I don't necessarily buy this whole thing of I'm not going to ever take the super soldier serum, because it's like, well, Steve did it and you admire Steve and you look up to Steve. So why is that such a big, I guess I don't understand the thought process there, because it's like, why is that such a big deal? You know what I'm saying? You want to become Captain America. You are Captain America. You need to do what you need to do to protect the people that you care about and protect protect your country or protect your beliefs and Isaiah took it too. And so I don't know, that's a whole nother discussion that we don't need to have right now. So there's been a lot of discussion online that there wasn't enough action in this movie. I've heard that a couple times, and I don't see that at all. I think there were really well-placed action scenes that moved the story forward. I think Bucky's got some pretty cool moments. The Sentry's got some pretty cool moments. Yelena has some pretty cool moments. John Walker has some pretty cool moments. I mean, the Red Guardian has his moments. Like, I don't understand where people are getting that idea from. If you needed more action, I guess, but I think it was a perfect blend of action and actual character development and actual character moments and drama that is very topical today. They do dive into depression and, anxiety and self-worth. I mean, that is kind of a central part of the story, and I think that's handled beautifully. I think Florence Pugh and Lewis Pullman, what they do as Yelena and as the Sentry here, and the bond that they create, incredible. And they did. I mean, they set it up where at the end of the movie, I basically was like, okay, like I'm ready to follow these people, this group of people, into the next phase of the MCU. Like, they did it. They accomplished it. They did it for me. They made a group of characters that I am now backing and I am now interested in, and I want to follow their journey moving forward, which I think is the number one thing that they have to do. And they have to also do that for the Fantastic Four coming up in the next couple months. One thing I will say, I will caution you that if you're going to take your little children to this movie, or you think that you're going to take your kids to this movie just because it's a Marvel film, I would advise you maybe not to for this movie, just because it does deal with some really heavy stuff, and they talk about some very adult themes that I just don't think kids need to see in the movie theater, right? It's not a movie made for kids. So, and there were different kind of groups of smaller kids in my theater, and as I was watching the movie, I was just like, this isn't something. And also too, I put myself back into the shoes of a kid when I was a kid, and I'm like, and it's different because the Thunderbolts is not the type of comic book movie that I grew up with, right? I grew up with X-Men, and I grew up with Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and I grew up with even the early Marvel films. I guess I could lump myself in that, even though I was kind of a teenager, and I was able to handle those themes a little bit more. But I mean, these were small kids that were in my theater, and I don't think it's an inspiring movie, but they deal with such heavy stuff here. And I think the Sentry is kind of confusing for kids, right? I don't think the kids are going to get everything that's going on there. It's just not a movie made for kids. So just because it has the Marvel Studios logo on it, there might be some people out there that think like, oh, it's Marvel, so I can just take my kid to it. And I mean, I would say, this is my opinion, I guess, but majority of the Marvel movies are not made for kids. I don't think so. I think early days Marvel, right? Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and while Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, I go back to that just because it's so fantastical and it's so storybook, right? Like, it's literally Norman Rockwell-esque vibe. I mean, he was really going for that vibe. And I think just as a society, we've gotten away from that in comic book movies. Now, is James Gunn going to bring that back in Superman? I think so. I think this is kind of a tangent, but then I'll wrap it up. I think that James Gunn is going to bring that style, sort of, right? That feeling of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, of the kind of Americana, Norman Rockwell, romanticizing of the comic book movie. I think he's bringing that back, and I think it's what we need. And there's little hints of that in this movie. It's not necessarily, I mean, it's very grounded, it's very real, and it deals with very real emotions, but there is heart, and there is camaraderie, and there is hope in this movie, which was nice to see, right? It's not all doom and gloom. And I think we need some hope when it comes to our entertainment and when it comes to our movies. All right, guys, that's going to be my thoughts on the Thunderbolts. Let me know in the comments down below. Did you see it? What did you think of the Thunderbolts? Are you excited for the next movie, The Fantastic Four? I can't wait for that. I'm super excited. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That's going to be all for today. Thank you guys so much, and have a great weekend. Peace.